For centuries, Britain built one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. At its greatest extent, British power stretched across an extraordinary part of the globe. But how did a relatively small island nation build such a vast empire? The story began long before Britain ruled a quarter of the world. English sailors began searching for new trade routes, markets, and territories overseas. The Atlantic became the stage for England's growing ambitions. Some early colonies struggled, disappeared, or failed. Then permanent English settlements began to take root. Along the Atlantic coast, England established a growing chain of colonies. Trade became one of the foundations of overseas expansion. In 1600, English merchants created the East India Company. Its ships traveled to India and beyond in search of profitable trade. Spices, textiles, and luxury goods connected Asian markets with European demand.
Excellent silk, wouldn't you agree? Indeed, fine quality. We have many more inside. Good, let us discuss terms. Meanwhile, English colonies expanded across the Caribbean.
Plantation economies became deeply dependent on enslaved African labor. Great Britain became deeply involved in the transatlantic slave trade. The wealth generated by slavery came with an enormous human cost.
After decades of campaigning, Britain abolished the slave trade in 1807. The time has come to declare the abolition of slavery across the British Empire.
It is done! We are free!
The burden of the Crown's debt falls to the colonies, but the new taxes are crippling our businesses.
We have no voice in these decisions. It's simply not fair.
Disputes over taxation and political power pushed Britain and its colonies toward confrontation.
In 1775, rebellion became a full-scale war. In 1776, the 13 colonies declared independence. Britain eventually lost its 13 American colonies. Then Britain entered a new age, the Industrial Revolution. Factories transformed production, transport, and the British economy. Coal, steam power, and new machines gave Britain enormous industrial strength. Industrial power also strengthened Britain's ability to project power overseas. In India, the East India Company was becoming far more than a trading organization.
The company's victory at Plassey in 1757 became a major turning point.
The company gained enormous political and financial influence in Bengal. Over decades, British control expanded across much of the subcontinent. Across Europe, Britain fought revolutionary and Napoleonic France. Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo in 1815 strengthened Britain's position in the world. After the wars, British trade and influence expanded across global networks. Britain also established a major presence in Australia. A penal colony established at Sydney Cove in 1788 became the beginning of a much larger colonial presence. For indigenous peoples, colonization brought profound disruption, dispossession, and conflict. British influence also expanded into New Zealand. Britain retained major territories in northern North America. These territories gradually developed into what would become Canada.
In 1867, several colonies united to form the Dominion of Canada.
No.
We propose this union will bring prosperity and strength.
During Queen Victoria's reign, the empire entered one of its most powerful periods.
Industrial wealth, finance, shipping, and technology strengthened Britain's global reach. Across the 19th century, British territories continued to expand.
The terms are satisfactory. Indeed. Our long-standing connections endure.
Then the scramble for Africa transformed the continent. British influence expanded through territories in East Africa. Southern Africa became another major center of British imperial power. By the early 20th century, Britain controlled territories across every inhabited continent. Conflict with Boer republics led to the costly Second Boer War. The Suez Canal became one of the most important strategic routes in the empire. British control and influence in Egypt became closely tied to the canal and the route to India. The canal dramatically shortened the strategic route between Britain and its Asian possessions. But the empire was never a single culture. It ruled over an enormous diversity of peoples.
Governments, companies, and colonial officials administered these territories in very different ways.
And wherever imperial rule existed, opposition and resistance existed too. Then the First World War transformed the empire. Millions of people from across the empire contributed to the war effort. The war demanded enormous sacrifices from Britain and its colonies. When the war ended, the political world had changed. In India, demands for self-government became increasingly powerful. Bharat Mata ki Jai, Vande Mataram, Inquilab Zindabad. A peaceful leader became a powerful symbol of India's growing independence movement.
Mass movements challenged British authority through protest, boycotts, and civil disobedience.
The British Raj still governed India, but its political foundations were under growing pressure.
Once again, people from across the empire were drawn into a global conflict.
In 1939, another world war began.
The war placed enormous economic and human pressure on Britain. When the war ended, Britain was victorious, but its imperial power had been weakened.
In 1947, British rule in India came to an end. Partition divided British India into India and Pakistan and triggered one of the largest migrations in modern history.
Two new independent states emerged from the end of British rule. Across Africa, the movement toward independence accelerated. One colony after another moved towards self-government.
Leo, Kenya inapata uhuru wake. Huu ni mwanzo mpya kwa wote.
In 1956, the Suez Crisis exposed how much Britain's global power had changed. Britain could no longer act internationally as freely as it once had. The era of European colonial empires was rapidly coming to an end. The British Empire disappeared, but its legacy remains part of the modern world, through borders,